Yo. What is up? Mess with my green screen slightly, so it should be a little bit better. It's still not perfect. I gotta do a lot of stuff to get it right, and now it's cropping out my shoulders, because of course it is. If it gets annoying, though, I can just put on a different shirt. So, the big thing today that I want to do is actually something that I wasn't going to do for a while, which is line of sight. And this is line of sight on the enemies. I want to expand this code out. Just right here. And really there's two things I need to do. The first is I need to put in a fail state for if it sees an object between you and it. And then I also need a state for if you get too far away, it fails. So this is the success state. So what I want to do is basically the same check, but for walls, which I'm pretty sure all I would do is take this. It can be exactly the same code, except ooh, maybe not. Okay. So what I was thinking is it would be the same code. Oh, I realized I don't have my headphones in. So this would be the same code. My initial thoughts were do the same thing, except it first checks if there's a wall object. And if so, then it puts scene equal to 0, and it kicks me out. Except... actually, I think this would work, because this would be if there's a wall object at that angle. Oh. It's apparent. PAR wall. This is PAR wall. And if these are true, then scene is equal to 0. And I need to have return 0. So it'll kick me out of this script. Is it really that simple? So this is if there's a wall between me and the enemy, then it does this. I think I want to add in a check. And I want it to be a top check, so it only checks one thing each frame, which would be if scene is equal to 0. And the reason why I want to put this check in is because I want this to work to where if it hasn't seen me yet and it sees a wall between me and it doesn't work. If it has seen me, though, it doesn't care if I move behind a wall. It'll still follow me, or try to. So then I need to add in a break. Or, break line of sight. Which this would be something like... It'd be the same thing as the success state. But what I would check is if this isn't true, and it's line of sight, times 2. Or sight range times 2. And then again, it would be sight range times 2. And then same thing if this is not true, or sight range times 2. Sight range times 2. So if I'm more than twice as far, so that should work, I think. So let's see it. I don't initialize in range. I guess I need to initialize in range. I can't type. Okay, so it's never seeing me. They're never seeing me. So here's what I'm going to do. First off, I should close all that stuff. And probably close that too. So what I'm going to do here is... I'm pretty sure what I got wrong. I'm going to turn off this code first, because I quickly logicked through this, so it wouldn't surprise me if this is wrong. This will rule out that code being broken, and it'll just check if this is true. Okay, so that's failing. If I hit them, they can see me. So this, for some reason, is always being true. So if seen is equal to 0, then it checks... I think I fixed this, but we'll find out. It checks this angle, checks the collision line times the sight range, all that stuff. And what it's seeing is if it would collide with PAR wall. And this angle here. Oh. I only want it to return if this check ends up being true. Okay, cool. So they can see me. However, things that are through walls should not be able to see me. That guy saw me. These guys see me. Perfect. Okay. It looks like it works. Okay, so let me turn this code back on, since if that was a problem, we haven't confirmed. So this is if I get more than twice their sight range away. That counts as breaking line of sight. Uh-oh. There's the problem. I just doubled their line of sight as opposed to... making it turn off one and twice the distance. So if I get into sight range, if I get far enough away fast enough, so this thing used to see me, it now doesn't. Or it's stuck. We'll find out if I get close enough and it sees me again. Perfect. And that other one didn't see me. Okay, so it looks like it works. It's not super useful yet, but it works. So that was actually really simple. No, they still have bad pathing. But I think I don't need to mess with that much. Enemy pathing. I don't think I need to do that for the alpha build I'm shooting for. So that actually went like super quick, which I'm glad. Okay. Oh, that's something that I need to change. That I noticed before. Okay. Yeah, so that was actually super quick. I was expecting to hit some problems with that and have to make it more complicated, but I didn't. So their line of sight will break, or they won't see me if there's an object in the way, and they won't see me if I get too far away, which is perfect. So let's take a look at what else we can do. More skills is annoying but good. More perks is annoying but good. More mods is annoying but good. Alright, so I need to make a decision on if I want to separate out the resistances, how I'm going to handle ailments, and I need to separate out the added damage scripts. All of this is pretty annoying. So right now I would treat resistance as one stat. My reasoning for this, which I've explained on previous streams, is for the most part I don't actually think it adds that much design space to separate out the resistances. So, let's say there's fire, cold, and lightning damage. I think having 3 different resistances isn't that interesting. Or at least, although it could be, I don't plan on making it interesting, because if we look at how most ARPGs do their resistance, and I more or less am going for the same kind of thing, gear that's good is gear that has 3 resistances on it. All 3 resistances. If it has less than all 3, it's pretty bad. So outside of really specific examples with certain uniques and stuff, for the most part you want 3 resistances on your gear. There's arguably some space for 2, but by making resistance 1 stat, and by letting it have bigger ranges on everything, you can sort of emulate it, where like, oh, having 2 resistances is the same as getting a medium roll on the resistance stat. More or less. So this works well. The only potential problem comes in for flavor on certain unique items, certain skills, stuff like that. For example, if I have like a oil-coated mod, and the idea is when you hit something with a weapon that's oil-coated, they lose fire resistance, right? That thematically makes a lot of sense. And it makes sense that it would only improve the fire damage. I don't have a way to do that right now because the resistances are the same. So in theory, I should separate out the resistances, but for the most part, treat the plus resistance mod as getting just all 3 resistances. So my items aren't going to change, but the way that I can interact with enemies with abilities and things can change. And I think that makes some sense. Which is why I was thinking about, or why I put that I should make some decision on that. So although I still stand by, like, an item should just give 10 to all resist. Or 2 to all resist, rather than, 3 fire, 4 cold, 10 light, like, whatever. I do think for offensive abilities and things like, curses and ailments and stuff like that, it makes sense to separate out the resistances. And then it gives me the space for certain unique items, giving them, like, a bunch of 1 resistance. Yeah. Fortunately, that's not too insane to do, so what I would do is... we would go to defense. So now we would have fire res, cold res, and lightning res. I would get rid of resistance. So I've just separated them out. I want to do the same thing on enemies. And then I need to go to the damage scripts and change them there. So here, where we reference resistance, instead, the top one is fire resistance, or fire res. Then it's cold res, and then it's lightning res. Did I do the Pierce mod right? So the resistance on the armor, this is a modifier that when it's multiplied in, it reduces the number. So by multiplying it by another decimal, we're reducing the reduction, so they would take more damage. Okay, cool. So then I need to do the same thing on the other damage script that I have. So same thing where we just take these resistances. Oh, I do this very differently here. Yeah, that's very different. I'll have to take a closer look at that. Let me write that down. Damage calc symmetry is messed up. So this is fire. This is cold. And this is lightning. Beautiful. So, after we take all of these, the only other place where I reference resistance is here. So now all I would do is replace this with fire, cold, and lightning. So right now, the functionality is exactly the same as it was, but it's set up. It's set up so that I can use them separately if I need to. Which, there's actually a mod that I do want to do this on, which is here. LE weakness, which is the final mod, and I believe this just gets passed into, yeah, the hitbox object. So if we look at this object, okay, so it references it on enemy damage, which makes some sense. Vulnerabilities. I call this LE weakness. I should call this fire weakness. I mean, I can still technically... Well... Yeah. Plus... LE weakness times 5. I still want to leave LE weakness as a thing, because that can apply to all of them. And then this should be fire res. And then what I want to do is I want to take this and separate it out. So this would be cold res. And this is lightning res. And this is cold weakness. This is lightning weakness. And then I actually think I want to put this above here, so it applies it before. So right now this happens before damage, so it applies retroactively. If I decide I don't want it to apply there, I'll have to put it afterwards. live, but what's up?
Did you mean to leave the eggs out for a reason?
No, I did not.
I put them back.
Okay, cool.
No salt or anything meant by that. I just...
Yeah, no, I literally made food like 30 minutes ago.
For sure.
Yeah.
Cool. And then Ryan and Eli are coming over tonight for hot tub. I texted you, so the hot tub should have been running all day. You didn't turn it off, did you?
I'm pretty sure it's off right now, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah, your text said that you turned it on? Okay. I'll talk with her when she gets back in. I separated out the resistances. But I don't have fire weakness, cold weakness, and lightning resistance actually as things. So what I want to do here is this isn't LA weakness now. This is now fire weakness. And then here, I need to change these to fire weakness. And this is the only one that does this, so fortunately I don't need to change it anywhere else. But I do need to initialize them in all of my hitbox objects. I should make a note that I'm going to have to, on top of the damage calc symmetry, also hitbox symmetry. Basically, I've made a whole bunch of changes to how my skills interact with enemies, but I haven't made it symmetrical for how enemy skills apply to me. And that's because for the most part it doesn't matter yet, so I figured I would sort of remake and redo all of the enemy hitboxes at the end when I know all the variables I'm going to use. So we can keep LE weakness, fire weakness, cold weakness, and lightning weakness. So now they'll be initialized, so it won't break anything. Okay. So now this should work. There's one final change that I want to make, which right now I have no intention of using, but is important for me to make the change because it will give me more flexibility later. Which I'm going to change this to total fizz. Total fire, total cold, and total lightning. And let's just go ahead and define all four of these. Yeah, Rach?
In just a sec, you might want to take a look at the Kraken.
Oh, yeah, no, I saw that earlier and went, I'm not going to fix that right now. Yeah. Which, by the way,
it was 78, so I might just hop in.
I totally got your message. What you wrote was turned on hot tub, which I thought meant that you turned it on.
I did.
Oh, okay. I thought you wanted me to turn it on, and then I was like, oh, I didn't get that at all. Okay, no. Good.
I turned it on.
It's been running, it's good, cool.
It's shut off because it's at 103.
So right, yeah, which is perfect. Yeah, beautiful.
And
good.
I'm probably going to hop in the pool here for a sec.
Cool. And
I want to fix the Kraken.
Then you can fix the Kraken, exactly.
It's pissing me off.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I saw that earlier and was like, that's amazing, and I'm not going to fix that. Yeah. This is a future me problem. Okay, cool. So these should be these. That's what I need to initialize these as. And I still need to initialize total damage. Or damage total. Total fizz. Total fire. Total cold. And then total lightning. So again, I'm not using this yet, but damage total equals total fizz plus total cold plus total fire plus total lightning. So the whole point of this is now I can manipulate them a bit differently if I want to. And actually there is something that I can use it as right away, which is rather than having the ignite damage be based on the base fire damage, I can make it based on the total fire damage. Which is one of the reasons I wanted to separate these. Oh. I can just do total fire, because it already inherits it as the other values. Yeah. So now, 600. Oh, because I want it to be divided by 60, because it's 60 frames per second, and then 10, because I want it to be a tenth of the damage dealt per second. So that's why it's 600. Yep, okay. Let me put that it's 10% of total fire each second. Just so that I don't have to redo the math every time I look at this and go, why did I do it that way? So this is one of the reasons why separating these out is better, because now stuff like lowering resistance and all that will actually affect the ignite damage. Hey Gift Exile, what's up? So this actually did matter immediately, but this is the only place where I'm actually going to refer to these for now. Thanks for the raid, man. What's up? So, I did do something that was on this list. Okay, yeah. So I handled the resistances. However, I still need to decide what I'm doing with ailments, and I do need to separate out the added damage scripts. Which is a little annoying. I guess I'll do the added damage ones right now, because it's kind of similar to what I just did. This is some gear mod stuff. Gear scripts, added damage. Is this pagan magic? Something like that, yeah. So right now I have one mod that's added damage because I was lazy, and it just does all this. I want to separate these out into 4 different ones, which is added fizz, fire, cold, lightning. So I'm just going to duplicate this a few times, and then just delete the ones that aren't relevant for each one. So this is added, okay, let's start with renaming this one. There should be added fizz. Hey, Drillick. I take it you just got back from work? Added fire. Added cold. And then added lightning. Okay, so now for this one, the only mod that we actually want is the one that applies to added fizz. And then the only one that we want for this is added fire, so on and so forth. So this part's obviously the easy part. The hard part, well, the harder part is applying them to the library and then to the different gear that can roll them. And that's actually going to be a bit annoying. And you'll see what I mean when I get to that part. It was a day? Yeah? What happened? Rachel, who is this? Music? Cause, they definitely sampled a Bleach soundtrack, by the way. It's like exactly the same, rhythm. Sorry, melody? Melody. Million things going wrong, basically. Pretty fun. Yeah? Thinking about a million things going wrong in your company, that sounds awful. Thanks for the follow, man. So we've separated out these scripts. So now I need to go to the gear library, I believe, is where I initialized this and where I need to update it. Yes. So this is this was the generic one, the old one, which was all 4. It's new tech, so it's not in production or out to customers. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. That means it's all solvable problems. Right. So this now doesn't do anything. So I'm going to make this the generic one, which was added fizz. So this one needs to be now added fizz damage. So now I need to add in 3 more entries for the additional ones. Oh, I've already initialized 3 empty ones. Look at me planning ahead, knowing that I was going to do this. So yeah, I'll just copy this and then write over the values. Easy. I hit Control A instead of Shift A. Classic. Let me just make this super brainless. I can't click right today. I can't click and I can't type today. This is gonna be fun. So this should be fire, cold, and lightning. In general, the order doesn't really matter, but in most places, I put fire, cold, and lightning in that order. So by doing it in this order, it makes it a little bit easier. Or it makes it consistent. Nothing much, man. It's going pretty good. The first thing I wanted to tackle today was modifying my line of sight code to be more expansive. I was worried it was going to be slightly problematic, like I was going to hit a few problems, and it took me literally 3 minutes, and it just worked. So, guess that wasn't a problem. So now I'm just getting other stuff done that I wasn't expecting to get done this early. So I need to add in the actual scripts, which need to be added in here. So let me go ahead and generic this. And I need 3 more. Okay, cool. So this should be 18, and then 19, and then 20. And then this should be SCR added fire. SCR added cold, yeah. And then SCR added lightning. And then I don't want it to actually perform the scripts, so I need to get rid of the brackets. And semicolon in for good measure, because good habits are good. Okay, so now I need to edit what mods each thing can have. And this is where it gets annoying. So anyone that had F3, now I need to add on 18, 19, and 20 as well. So let me make my life easy and go 18, 19, 20. And just go ahead and colon in front of that, or comma in front of that, and now we can just paste this in. So anyone that has a 3, this has a 3, this has a 3, and this has a 3. Alright, so now it should work. It should. Okay, so I kind of want to test the fire resistance code that I just switched out on sweep. So let me roll in a witch, upgrade sweep so I get that mod. And basically I'm not really going to test if it works fully, because that involves doing some debug code I don't want to mess with right now. I just want to make sure it doesn't break my code. Hits lower resistance, beautiful. And then I want to... Oh, I also want to just roll some gear. So let me debug in some gear and just roll mods to see if I get the damage mods. Added fizz, added lightning, and added fire. As well as increased damage, which is a different mod, yeah. So that's like an insane shield, actually. This can't roll added damage. I think swords can. And I think gloves can. Added fire, yeah, that looks right to me. And let's get some gloves. Added fizz, yeah. So I should actually do an insane amount of damage with just this now. Like, way more than I would normally expect to. But it looks like it at least is rolling the text for them correctly. How do I get out of this? Oh, right, with that menu. Okay. So I just tried to open up my inventory to see my stats, and there's one more place where I refer to resistance, which is no longer a stat. So I need to fix that. Because this is where I should see my damage stats as well. Maybe I don't. But yeah. So I need to fix that, obviously. And that is in the draw step of my player data. Yes. So I need to totally rewrite this. And I kind of need to remanage how I'm handling this anyways. So I might just go ahead and do that. This should be fire resistance, and this is string fire res. And then, right, I need to shift all these up. So this should now be at 70. This should now be at 90. This should be at 1100. This should be at 1300. This should be at 1500. One thing I'm really not looking forward to is making it so that way my code actually fits different resolutions. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. This should be cold resistance, and this should be lightning resistance. There is no physical resistance, because that's just armor. This is cold res. This is lightning res. I fixed my resistance script, yeah? I'm pretty sure I did, but let me check that before... Good, I did, okay. So then the other thing that I want to change about what's on this, let me go ahead and reset my workspace, because I have a bunch of stuff open from last time I was working on stuff, and half those objects probably don't matter right now. Okay, so what I want to change about my visual stuff is there's a couple places, there's 2 inventories where I draw all this stuff. So there's this one that I just fixed, which was for the gear inventory. But I also reference it in my perks inventory. So I want to fix that by scripting this out. It's technically, I guess, an inventory script, but not really. I'll just not put it into a group yet until I figure out how we want to organize this. SCR display stats. So let's take all of this and go ahead and put it in this script. And then I can just run the script here. Display stats. So now I don't have any needless redundancy, and the code also becomes more readable, because I also do it right here. Let me check, did I... Yeah, this line can go. So I edited that in a different place. Let me just scroll through and make sure that that's the only 2 inventories I use my stats, because that should be the only 2 inventories. Yes, because I don't do it in stashes, and I don't do it in skills. Okay, yep, we're good. It's like 50-50 whether or not an application can do 4K properly. Steam doesn't? Yeah. Now that's the thing, is like, I need to... Fortunately, because this is going to be a pixel art game, it's simpler. I just need to figure out how to make sure that, like, the positioning of all these items and all that right now, it's a pretty easy change. You just need to change it in a lot of places. Right now, I literally just have it be that this is like 1280 by 720 or something, and it just counts the pixels. What I will need to do is make it so that it takes the size of the display window, and if I want it to be like centered, for example, is it takes the width of the display window, halves it, and then adds or subtracts values to it. So it'll always go off the center of the screen, or the top, or the bottom, or the left, or the right. And then I just need to check for different resolutions to make sure stuff doesn't overlap. And I can put in, like, 12 native resolutions or something. Right? So pretty doable, it's just kind of a lot of busy work. What? Oh! I forgot to copy over something that's very, very important from here. Because I set these as temporary variables. That's fine, I can just set these variables again up in here. I kind of like these tabbed over, actually. So yeah, I'll leave them tabbed over. And then, basically, I'll do it for like 8 to 12 or 14 resolutions or something. And then, as long as I choose them smartly, if you have a 4K monitor or whatever, it can just upscale one of the resolution settings to fit it. So basically, it would just be like different, I mean, I guess not resolutions, different aspect ratios. And as long as everything lines up correctly on the different aspect ratios, then I can just have it, you know, pixel double or triple or whatever, and it should handle it. So it's doable. It's just, I didn't want to think about that when making the alpha, so I just didn't. And technically, I could just say, screw you, there's one aspect ratio, and then black bar it, or letterbox it, but I hate that. Fair enough, I didn't actually change the Y values on this, so that makes sense. Yeah. But it looks like that works. Oh, right. Okay, the whole reason I was getting onto this whole tangent was to check the witch code, but I can go ahead and fix this and then also make the witch code. Or check the witch. Because I wanted to check the resistance piercing on this. Oh. Okay, third try. And there we go. Now they're separated out. Beautiful. I can color coordinate these and all this stuff, but I'm not messing too much with polish right now. I should write it down, though, which is color coordinate resistances in inventory. And then I want to... There was something else I wanted to write down, something else I thought of. That would be nice to put in. Uh-oh. What was it? I don't know. I'm sure I'll think of it later. Okay. So now they should take more fire damage. Instead, something breaks. Let's go ahead and copy this. This is on the fireball projectile, except it's not. It's on this script, or SER damage, which is the script that I run for this. Not enemy damage, but damage. So this broke for some reason. Okay, let's go ahead and double check what this error was. Line 14. Did I not separate out the resistances on the enemy objects? I thought I did. Where's their defenses? Okay, so that's fine. So that's not the problem. Armor, fire resistance, cold resistance. Sounds like my sister is trying to teach the dog how to use the pool. Why isn't this working? Because the sweep hitbox, I know I initialized, yeah, the 4 different weaknesses. So it looks at each of these. It's breaking on this one, but that's fine. So normally it would just subtract 0 from it, because these are initialized as 0. The actual mod from the skill defines this as a 1, so then it should subtract 5. But either way, the variables exist. So why am I getting this error? Fire resistance minus... This is on the enemy object, which has fire resistance. And the hitbox has the fire weakness. And I know that's what other and whatever refers to and doesn't refer to, because down here, other.phys damage, this is referring to the hitbox. So other up here is still the hitbox. And this is just the regular. And I don't think I messed with this on the player damage script at all. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't even need to look at this here. I mean, I have these, but those should work just fine anyways. Okay. I don't know why this error is coming up. Alright, time to run in debug mode. Except I didn't click run it in debug mode, but that's fine. This is why I wanted to test the witch code, because I was pretty sure it's rare that I first try some code. Coffee. Okay. Let's see... So they can hit me just fine, and they do. Oh, that's right. So hitting them with sweep isn't causing the problem. Trying to hit them with fireball is causing the problem. And you know what it probably was? It's probably dumb. And although I defined this stuff here, I probably didn't on the other objects. So it's not on here. And I know the error code literally said what object it was failing on, and I just didn't read it. I don't think this needs it technically, but I should put it here anyways. Yeah, let's go ahead and stop running the code and close the debugger and then try again. Now it should work. Keyword being should. Oh, sweet! It looks like all the sound from the backyard isn't actually coming through my mic because my compressor's working properly. Nice. Huh, I thought that was coming through. Beautiful. It's good to know. Yeah, for those who don't know, my window that's like 3 feet from me back there goes right into the backyard, which right on the other side of it is our hot tub and our pool and whatnot. So when people are outside, I've always been worried that it'll come through on the mic, but it looks like it doesn't, because I have good software. So they should take more fire damage. Okay, so let's see. A normal hit does 10 damage with Fireball, which makes sense. Damn, if I hit them, they'll take too much damage. Okay. I'm gonna go over here, crank up the difficulty, and test it over here, where I can give them like 1 billion life. Okay. Yeah. So normally Fireball deals 10 damage. If I hit them, now it deals a little bit more damage. It deals like 11 damage. Beautiful. So it's totally working, and I believe the resistance lowering stacks. I can turn this down a little bit. That's like half the difficulty. So, I just want to see if it stacks. Yep, it stacks. Beautiful. Yeah, so it works exactly the way that I want it to. Nice. Okay. Okay, so if we go back to here, first off, don't need the error code anymore. So I've separated out the added damage stuff. And I've figured out the resistances. I still need to figure out what I'm doing with elemental ailments. So this is much more designy. So here's where I'm at. I'm fine with one of the fire ailments being Ignite. In that I'm fine with things catching fire and burning over time. I think that's fine. I kind of want fire to also and or do something else. Because I think a lot of abilities, it doesn't make sense for them to have an Ignite chance, but I still want fire to have a special attribute. So I want to think of something that would fit for fire. As just something that like all fire damage could do. Lightning damage, I'm making my game so that lightning damage has a stun chance. And I'm doing that because I think that's the best version in any game that I've seen for what lightning damage does. As like an extra effect. In that, as interesting as it is in Diablo 2, that lightning damage is like a minimum of 1 damage to like 80 billion. I don't think that's that interesting, actually. Like, I think it just, like, it's cool on paper, but playstyle-wise, it just doesn't feel very good. Or at least, to me, it doesn't feel very good. And it's not like it's an actual advantage, it's just a flavor thing. Like, on average, the damage comes out to be the same, so you don't actually get anything for doing lightning damage. And in Path of Exile, lightning shocks. And if you're shocked, you take increased damage from everything. And that, to me, like, doesn't make sense. I don't get the idea behind that. Why would being shocked make you take more damage from cold? I don't know where they were going with that. Overall, it seems like, in general, it's hard to come up with something that lightning damage would do, and so most games just kind of YOLO it. I think stun chance makes a lot of sense. Because that's how stun guns and tasers and stuff work, right? Lightning disrupts your nervous system and you get stunned. So I definitely want to do stun for lightning damage. But now this puts cold damage in a weird spot. And here's what I mean. If I have freeze chance on cold, that's effectively just also stuns. So they kind of do the same thing. Now I can have chills, which would slow, something like slow movement speed and slow attack speed or whatever. And I can have that ramp up. And how I can make it so it's not like just worse than stunning is I can make stun a stun chance, where chills it will always do, it's just the amount that is chilled that gets scaled. So for example, a little bit of cold damage will chill them by like 5%. So they'll be a little bit slowed. A stun is 100%, right? They can't move and they can't attack while they're in the stun state. So it does separate that a bit, and that still fits the logic that a lot of games use of lightning damage being kind of random, where it's like, well, you'll randomly get 100% of an effect. Whereas with cold, you always get a little bit of a partial effect. And then, again, you can scale that and ramp that up. So I'm pretty happy with that, but I haven't officially decided that that's how I'm going to do it, and that's how I'm going to put it in. And I haven't come up with an idea for fire damage outside of the ignites, and I do want something different. For example, I would love to come up with a really smart mechanic for how burns work. If you get burned. Here's the problem with it, is it's a little weird. So, if we look at, like, the burned state in, say, Pokemon, right? All fire damage has a chance to burn things in Pokemon. At least I think it does. At least some fire moves have a chance to burn. And what burned does is every turn they take a little bit of damage. And to me, that doesn't really make too much sense. Logically. Like, it's not completely off, in that, if we take, like, heat stroke for an example, I know we're going morbid right away. The whole idea with heat stroke and why it's so dangerous is essentially your head gets so hot that your organs in your head start to cook. And the idea of why that's so dangerous is even if you get out of the hot environment, it takes time for your head to cool down. So if you're like 1 degree or 2 degrees above cooking temperature in your head, you need to immediately cool off by 2 degrees before that will stop. And I think that's kind of the idea, is like with 3rd degree burns and on, that effect applies, where even if you remove it from the hot environment, it continues to get worse until it cools down. First off, that's morbid as shit. And secondly, that doesn't really apply well, I think, here. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that, so it's not that logical. Then there was another example. Oh, and the reason why I don't like ignites is not all fire damage, like not all sources of fire damage within fantasy and stuff is necessarily going to have a chance to catch you on fire. So I would love to do something for getting burned that isn't just a little bit of damage over time. Or like damage ticks. So for example, my thought process is, what happens when you burn yourself when you're cooking, right? Even a small amount of heat, if it's, hot enough to do damage to you, it's hot enough to burn you. And if you get burned while cooking, right, you don't continue to take damage, right? The burn is more or less done. Unless it's, like some really hot grease burn. But doing things now sucks, right? If I burn my right hand's just in constant pain. And if I try to pick stuff up, it hurts more and all that stuff. But there's no, good mechanic for pain. Or at least I can't think of one that would apply well to an ARPG. So I love the idea of burns being the name of the ailment and the idea, because again, if it's hot enough to do damage to you, if it's hot enough for you to lose life, hot enough for you to get harmed, it's hot enough to burn you. And I can have the burn kind of scale, right? Kind of like with chills. But what would being burned actually do to you? How could I represent that painful mechanic? And I'm not sure. When I originally considered this, like a few months back, I considered burn making you more vulnerable to elemental damage. Kind of the idea being that if your hand's burned, I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but like if you burn your hand and then that hand ever goes near anything hot again, like if you put it under even like hot water, it hurts a lot more. Like your body kind of rejects the heat. And so my thought is, well, the same thing should apply. Like burned tissue, a burned part of your body doesn't really hold up as well as non-burned material. So like I'm pretty sure, I don't actually know if the science checks out on this, but I'm pretty sure if you have burned flesh, it gets more easily frostbitten. It's not going to be more conductive to electricity, though, but kind of the idea is kind of loosely there, and I like that a bit better than taking damage, for example, which is what a lot of games do for burned. I kind of like the idea of making you more vulnerable to elemental damage. But even that doesn't feel quite right. So in theory, at some point I do need to figure out, I want to have a crippling chance, cripple mechanic. The idea being something like you get crippled charges or something like certain moves will have a pretty high chance of giving you a cripple debuff, and the cripple debuff will do something like nerf damage or nerf move speed or whatever, and then that debuff stacks to a point where basically the enemy becomes useless. Think of it kind of like a dismember mechanic, like if you cut off both their legs and both their arms, what the heck is the thing gonna do anymore? Something kind of like that. And in theory, burning is like a light crippling effect. Right? If half your body's covered in burns, you are crippled, just not to the extreme of, say, having an arm cut off. So maybe I should wait till I develop how I want to do the cripple mechanic, and then perhaps have fire just do a smaller version of the cripple effect. And there's a little bit of asymmetry with how the mechanics overlap as well, and that's kind of nice. I don't know, it's tough. I'm fine, though. I'm fine for now just having fire do ignite and figuring out burns later. I don't need to have this figured out right now. And I'm happy with stuns on lightning damage and chills on cold damage and not having a freeze chance. Oh, one thing of note. So the reason why I don't like freeze chance is, as I said, because it overlaps with lightning's stun chance. That being said, I'm fine with certain abilities freezing. My idea here being, if I hit you with, a frostbolt, realistically, it's not going to freeze you solid, right? So, yeah, it shouldn't have a freeze chance. Now, that being said, if I try to, say, imprison you in a block of ice, yeah, you're frozen solid. So I'm fine with freeze being something cold abilities can do, kind of like how ignite is something fire can do. What I mean by ailments here is something that every source of that kind of damage has a chance of doing. So I think all lightning damage having a chance to stun totally makes sense with how electricity works in real life, right? All cold damage chilling you at least a little bit makes sense. So although some abilities will use freeze as a mechanic, it's not going to be core to all sources of cold damage. And so that's what I mean where it's like, I need something else for fire damage that isn't ignite. And that's what I mean when I say I don't want freeze to be the thing for cold, because it overlaps with stuns on lightning. Alright, so let's So let me map this out a little bit better. So there will be elemental ailments, which are chills for cold and stuns for lightning. I don't have anything for fire. Need fire. And then I can have like secondary effects, which would be freeze for cold. And ignite for fire. I don't have any secondary effect for lightning right now. I don't think that's a big deal, though. I don't think that's needed. Oh, actually, sorry, I do, which is chains for lightning. I totally do. So the secondary effect that some lightning abilities will have is that they'll chain lightning. Yeah, that totally works. And I think that, again, totally makes sense for lightning damage. And it makes sense as a sometimes effect. I guess I should call this as like a sometimes ailment. Whereas this is an always ailment. Something like that. So the next big decision I need to make, I was talking with somebody about this the other day in my stream, which was that one big thing that I could do, or one thing that I think is very interesting, is if resistance doesn't just affect damage. Right? And that separating out the resistances a little bit, I think makes some sense. Now again, I'm not playing too much with that, in that a lot of gear that gives resistance is going to give all three. But I like the idea that somehow resistance ties into resistance towards the ailment as well. Now for stuff like Ignite and Chains, that will already kind of work, because Ignite and Chains are going to be based on the modified damage. So if you have a high resistance, you're going to take less burning damage, and less damage is going to be chained to you or whatever. Like this will go through resistance, and this is based on the damage taken after it goes through resistance. So those are sort of already accounted for in the secondaries. But on these, on chills and stuns, they aren't. So I have two ideas for that. One is, well, I guess there's sort of three different models. There's two different models, and then there's combining the two. So the first was to make it so that way, if you have a higher lightning resistance, it reduces the stun chance that lightning damage has. Cool. If you have a higher cold resistance, it reduces the effect of being chilled. It is, well, cold damage does basically nothing to you. Why would you get chilled? So I can do it that way, where it's just intrinsic to resistance, and this is going to make something like cold resistance feel really powerful, or really nice quality of life. Because reducing the effect of chills on you is going to feel very satisfying. So this way, you sort of have this, rather than just numbers, there's an extra mechanical feeling to resistance, so you can really feel the impact. If you have crap resistances, you're going to really feel it, because you're going to get stunned a lot, and you're going to get slowed, and ignites are going to be a whole bunch of damage. You're going to really feel mechanically the impact. So that's why I like tying it into that. The second thing is I can make it just literally a separate stat, which is reduced effective chill, reduced chance of being stunned, reduced ignite damage, right? I can literally just make these extra sort of secondary stats and just have them affected by other things. That's totally possible. The third option is I can do both. I can make it so that way there is this separate stat, and your resistance partially contributes to it. But there's also ways to just scale the reduced effective chill. Right? All three models, I think, work. All three models have their advantages and their disadvantages. I think the disadvantage to the first model, and therefore the combined model, is that if I tie the chance to, or if I scale the ailment based on resistance, it makes resistance one of those things of like, you just want more. which it's already something you just want more of always. But I think by separating them out, it then creates more room for actual decision-making of, well, I can't get maxed everything. So, ooh, here's this item that gives me a whole bunch of reduced chill effect, which is really powerful and really, really nice. But it means I'm gonna have to take a hit on another stat. Maybe have lower fire resistance or whatever. And that kind of decision-making of what do you want more or less of is really important to this kind of game. So that's the advantage of the second model, of having them be completely separate mechanics. The problem, though, is, like I said, in that the advantage of the first model is that you really feel the impact of resistance because it has this mechanical part to it as well. Yeah. I'm leaning towards the third model of combining the two. But first, I guess, let me implement these ailments into the game in the first place, and then I'll work from there. And God, it's getting warm in my room. It must be a hot day. I'm gonna open up my bedroom door at least to get some kind of cross breeze. We might get some more background noise, but it's getting toasty in here. Probably doesn't help that I've got a big, air blocking green screen behind me. So I'm just in this little pocket in my room that has my computer in it. So why do I want to do this? I need to do this on the damage script. So I already have the ignite mechanic. And this isn't like an ignite chance, this is just some abilities have the toggle set to 1, as in they do ignite, and this is what ignite does. Perfect pool weather? Yeah. By the way, Drillick, if you guys want to come over, pool's ready, hot tub's gonna be ready tonight. Again, anytime, you can come on over tonight. So, I already have ignite implemented. I have slows. I use this mechanic for certain abilities. Like, I'm pretty sure this deals cold damage, so one of the mods that I put in was slows. I think I need to change this. So I think what I need to do is I think I need the slows debuff should be a scaled amount. And then cold damage intrinsically has some slow amount. And let's base it on damage, so it ties into resistance, based on damage taken. Something like that. So if I want to do it this way, what I would want... I don't have to do anything with this toggle, this is just extra slows amount, basically, is what this is going to add. So I can go to my damage script. These are my sprites. Let me go ahead and close some of these things that I don't need open right now. Okay. So let's go to the damage script. Oh, by the way, Drillick, I've been watching a lot of Spheros, and she works with Unity, and I think you should take a very serious look into Unity. I think a lot of my criticisms were short-sighted and misguided. It looks very, very reasonable to use, and obviously Unity has an insane amount of support, so you and Coltrane might have a more positive attitude looking into Unity than using GameMaker. I still love GameMaker, because it's simple in all the right ways. So, I need to change this to be chilled /slows. And I need to have a variable, which is slow amount. Is amount with 2 M's? I always mess this up. I think amount is 1 M, but I always think it's 2. And let's just have this equal to 0 initially. And then what we do is we take the total cold damage taken. We plan to work on proof of concept for Game Maker Studio. If we hate it, then we'll probably switch to Unity. C# is sick. Yeah. Yeah, and cool thing too is, I mean, maybe I just don't know that much about how different or similar different codes are, but when I've worked with stuff like a little bit of Python or HTML or whatever, my experience with using different codes is that the syntaxes are very, very different. Unity syntax looks very similar to Game Maker syntax, which I know is very similar to C++ syntax. So it seems like Unity's a pretty good call for you guys. But we'll see. Obviously, I can help you if you're using Game Maker. I can't help you that much if you're using Unity. So that definitely is a consideration for just getting the prototype finished. So yeah, we're gonna take the total cold damage. We're gonna divide it by a number. Multiply it by a number. I don't want to calculate how much something gets slowed by. I want to end up with a percent, and that percent should be less than 100. Ooh, I can look at their max HP. So if I divide the cold damage, which is either the smaller number or just one-shots them, and divide it by their max HP, I might totally change how I do this calculation later. This gives me a percentage, and I can put the slow amount equal to that. So the slow amount will scale by how much of their health you deal as cold damage. So if you deal like half their health in damage in one hit, it slows them by 50%. I think it makes some sense. And this number is pulled after resistance. So cold resistance does factor into the slow amount. Then, if I have this variable slows, I can also have this add to move slowed equals 0? Why does that matter? That shouldn't matter. Yeah, so now I can do something like this, which is if the hitbox has the slows mod, this will just add to slow amount a certain value. And this is a percentage, so let's add, I don't know, 10%, maybe 20%? 20% will feel impactful. And I can make this a rolled value later. I guess actually, let me just do it this way. Times other dot slows, because slows will either be a 1 or a 0 right now, and then it's much more easily adapted to a rolled value. So that's fine. And then we just have move speed equals move speed times slow amount. And then later on, because right now I don't have sprites for stuff, I can have an add-in toggle for chill visual effect, just so that you can see that it's been chilled. For chill visual effect / slowed visual effect. Cool. And let me go ahead and tab this up so I can easily follow this. So again, the ignites takes the total fire, which is scaled by the resistance. So now we need the stun chance. which is technically from lightning damage. And I don't have it from anything else right now, but I will have other sources of stuns. So, let's go stun duration. And I guess also stun chance. And what happens is we can kind of do the same thing where we also scale it based on life or damage taken. So stun chance, I can set this equal to total lightning divided by the max HP. So again, you can get more than 100% stun chance, but only if you do more than 100% damage, and they're just dead anyways, so it doesn't matter. Stun duration should arguably scale as well. Let me initialize the stuns as 2 seconds. I might switch these values around later. I might manipulate them with different stuff later, but for now I think this is the easy thing. Oh, yeah, because it's not using this yet, yeah. So then I need to random. So this is between 0 and a value. Let's do 100. Equals, oh, sorry. This should be stun roll, which I guess also should be a var, but var stun roll equals random 100. And then we would have if stun roll is less than stun chance, then do stunned equals 1. And stunned is not a variable that I do anything with right now, so I need to put this in. Oh, and I need to do stunned duration equal to stun duration. So right now this doesn't change, but again, this now is implemented so I can add in stuff that will affect stun duration. So now I need these to do something, and I have 2 enemy objects. So let me go to those and manipulate them there. So this should be defense, I guess? No? Damage mods, maybe? Debuffs. Debuffs, toggles, and DOTs. That's perfect. So here we have stunned, which by default is 0, and we have stunned duration, which is also defaults as 0. So both attack and move need to be locked by stun, which is pretty easy. It's really, really easy, actually. I can just put all the way at the top if stunned is equal to 0. So if stunned equals anything other than 0, it won't be able to attack. And same thing with movement. Really, really, really easy check. That's fine. I guess I kinda should also put in the stunned toggle for here, but I'm not gonna worry about it too much. And then for counters, I just need if stunned duration is greater than or equal to 0, then stunned duration minus equals 1. Because this happens on each step, this will count it down, and then I just need to put, I guess I should put it here. If stunned duration is equal to 0, Did I misspell that? Yes, I did. Duration is equal to 0, then take the stunned toggle and set that equal to 0. Oh, by the way, I do this a lot. I will have stuff where the counters will actually tick because of greater than or equal to all the way to -1, because at 0 it will still tick down by 1. And I have my toggle switches happen at 0. I actually do this very, very intentionally. And here's why. If I do this, what will happen is stun duration will tick all the way down to 0 and stop. And then every frame where that's equal to 0, which will be true until it gets stunned again, it will keep resetting this variable to 0, which is taking computations that are completely unnecessary. If I allow for it to tick down to -1, what happens is on the frame where it hits 0, on that step, it will reset the toggle. Then on literally the next step, it'll set it to -1, and it'll ignore this line moving forward. And then it'll, not do that set every single frame. So it is a very slight performance thing, but when you end up in positions where I end up, where I'll have something have, 8 different, 20 different, 30 different counters ticking down on each frame, having it do 30 of these checks and sets on every single frame adds up, and is completely unnecessary too. So I very intentionally have these tick down to -1. Okay, so that should work, I'm pretty sure. I need to add in the same thing to the ranged enemy. Excuse me. Okay, beautiful. So, cold damage should chill, and lightning damage should stun. I have chill affect movement speed, but not attack speed. In theory, I should change that. But I'm fine leaving it this way for now, because I'm not necessarily sure if I want it to affect attack speed. The other thing that's kind of important to note okay. So there's 2 or 3 small problems with this, but I think it kind of doesn't matter. So, first is that it stacks, but I think since for the most part it scales based off how much damage you're dealing, it more or less doesn't matter, because if you slow them by an absolute butt ton, they're basically dead. Anyways. So I think I'm fine leaving this, but it is important for me to make a note of that it stacks. And then the second thing is right now it lasts forever. This doesn't wear off. And I'm also fine with that. My general policy is if something doesn't absolutely have to have a duration, I don't give things a duration. And here's why. For the most part, unlike basic enemies, it doesn't matter, and in a lot of ARPGs, you can get, with, chilled. You end up just having everything always chilled anyways. The duration isn't really that important. The times when duration matters is in, specifically boss fights or really, really tough enemies. So I'm not going to worry about it too much until I get to designing that. This also fits the general design philosophy of, if you're going to err on the side of everything being too strong or everything being a little bit too weak, as in, do you err on the side of having to go, I may need to nerf this later, versus I don't want to break anything right away. The first option tends to be better, because oftentimes stuff that you think is too strong ends up being fine. So let's say I overestimate everything, and half of it I have to change. Well, if I underestimate everything or play it safe, that's half the things could have been stronger, and I just didn't know, because I underestimated. So I tend to overestimate. So that's why stuff like slows is not going to have a duration. Stuff where it really matters, like ignites has a duration, just because the whole point is it deals a certain amount of damage. But I have this stack as well. So ignites are kind of broken, because each time you hit and you get another ignite, it adds to how much damage they take on each tick, and adds to their duration. So it, like, you kind of get exponential gains by stacking ignites. And then stuns has a duration just because it has to, because infinite stun is stupid. That I know is going to be broken, right? So, but for the most part, I don't give things durations unless it absolutely needs them. But I may need to change this later, so that's why I made note of it, just so that I remember, oh yeah, I didn't give this a duration, and I can consider every time I see it, ooh, should it have a duration now? So this should all work. The only thing that's kind of weird, I technically don't have skills for each damage type, but my gear can roll mods that give me damage of each of these types. So I can, in theory, test out these mechanics. So, for example, as the Witch, my primary attack just deals physical damage. So let me go ahead and cheat in some items and roll some damage stats. I got added fire on this. That does not give any ignite chance. Because, again, ignite is a secondary effect, not a primary. This one, okay, cool. This sword has added lightning, so I should have a stun chance. Did I roll second added? No, so this just has added lightning. But now I should do some lightning damage, which means I should have some stun chance. It may be hard to see, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come here, scale up the difficulty a bit. And did I not initialize stunned? I didn't initialize stunned. Fair enough. I think I initialized it on this object. I just didn't initialize it on the ranged enemy. Yep. And thinking about it, I probably need to add cool. I probably need to add in a good check for stunned. Like a good visual cue. Just because they get stunned, it may not be really obvious that that happened. So I should probably put in something like, if stunned equals 1, then draw text, X, yeah, minus 10's fine. Yeah, Calypso. And let's put this up just above their HP. And the text should say stun. So thinking about it this way, can I also add in a check for if they're slowed? I don't have a formal chills toggle, so no. The ignite is obvious because they take damage over time. Okay, I'll just check stunned for now. And now I don't need to fight really, really tough things, because if they get stunned, it'll flash the text. Okay, same thing, I need to take my weapon and see if I can get it to roll added lightning. Cool, added fire and added lightning. Perfect. Yeah, that stuff's too strong. It kills me. I'll set the difficulty back down. The stun chance should be pretty low. Well, it should be like a third. Because I'm doing a third of their max health, so if my math is correct, they should have about a third chance to get stunned, and it looks like they very much don't. Yeah. This doesn't add up. Okay, so why isn't this working? Let's check. Probably got my math wrong. Hey, Calypso, don't bump the mic. If stun roll is less than stun chance... Oh! Yeah, that's the problem. Fair enough. I need to take this and then multiply it by 100. Oh, and I guess it's not a third. Also, it looks like added lightning isn't actually working. Because I should actually have been dealing more than 10 damage there from the actual mod. I just need some source of lightning damage. Added lightning, cool. I should do more than 10 damage, and then the stun chance is just based on the lightning damage that I deal. So I'm not doing more damage, so the mod doesn't work. The mod's broken somehow. Let's see why that is. This multiplies... Alright, we got people over, and there's a lot of ruckus in the shit. So it should be taking the base fizz damage, multiplying it by the added lightning mod, and adding that to the total damage. So it should be working. So what this tells me is that for some reason it's not actually adding the lightning damage that it's supposed to add when I equip the gear. So let's go ahead and check the gear mod and see why that's true. Let's get added lightning. Literally just adds to the added lightning stat, and it adds 0.1, which is how much it should add if it has this toggle. So then I need to check on the actual gear equipment. Where is this? This is in inventory, I believe. Yes. And it should be gear slot. Gear slot. No. This one. Where does it figure out the script? Here. It should roll the script. Okay. And I guess now we need to check the script library. It should roll the added lightning script if it can. Yeah. Yeah, it can roll on shields, weapons, and gloves. Oh, do I not pass it into the hitbox? I don't pass it into the hitbox. Yep. So here I need to make a decision. Do I want to pass the values from the character object, or from your character into the hitbox object, like I do with this other stuff, and then I can keep the script the way that it's written? Or do I want the script to refer to my values, regardless of the hitbox that it's on? I think I want to pass the values in, because then I can manipulate them better on the actual skill itself. How do I multiply that there? Oh, yes, because that's the amount of damage that I deal. Yeah. Added. Well, let me do it in the same order so that it's consistent. Added cold, or added fire, added cold, and then added lightning. And these should equal obj player data dot, and then the same values. So let me just set up the generic, and then I can paste these in. And actually, it's probably easier for you just, yeah. This is going to get messy and complicated pretty quickly, but this should work. I'll need to add this into all of my other skills as well, that damage. But I'm just going to make sure that this works initially. Yeah. Okay, I got added fire, which is not what I'm looking for. I'm going to try to roll the added lightning on all 3 pieces of gear it can be on. Because I'm going to do as much lightning damage as possible just to make the stun chance pretty high. Added lightning, beautiful. And what was the last piece? Ah, gloves. Come on. Give me added lightning. I'll give it one more try. I guess I got 2, so I'll give it 2 more tries. Okay, it's cold and fizz. Damn. Okay. Whatever. I still have some lightning, so I should do like 20% lightning damage or something, and it still doesn't work. Why not? Okay, I'm gonna put a written display for those values to make sure my character is getting them, and then I can add debug code to see if they're getting passed into the object correctly, which they should, and then that will use the damage script. Oh, this does reference the character. Well, let me change that, because now it shouldn't. Yeah, I'm technically going to have to later on pass these into and all that jazz, but for now. And the nice thing, too, about actually doing it that way is this can be a more generic script, and I can maybe just use the same one on enemies, because if it's all referred to as other and self, then it's different. Obviously, the leech is a bit different, but I can still make that work. I can still generic that. But okay, so that shouldn't fix the problem. It kind of should. Let me just see if any of them work. I just want any damage mod on sword, shield, or gloves. Oh, I'm bad. I actually need to pick one of the two classes that starts with items. I mean, I don't have to, but... Wow. Odds are pretty high. Added fire and added lightning. Beautiful. So now that it references the correct one, it could work. It doesn't. So now it doesn't see that value. And I'm pretty sure it might be because I don't initialize it. Yes. Remember what I said about this getting complicated fast, because there's a lot of variables? But I will eventually script this out and use it for all of the hitboxes and whatnot. Because I'm still adding in values and stuff, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like in the end. And which ones matter for which kinds of hitboxes and stuff. I didn't mean to hit screenshot, but that's fine. Yeah. Cool thing is, I already got the thing done that I wanted to get done today. So this is just gravy at this point. Oh, yeah, I need to actually roll the damage mods. Added fish should technically work. Added lightning, cool. And more added fish. Do I actually do more damage now? Because I should. I do not. Yep, so something's still messed up. So let me add in that code where I don't have it in any of these categories. It's just a floating script. Display stats. Let's do it, I guess, here. So let's skip 2, and then this should be added fizz, which is added fizz. This is 290, this is 310, this is 330, this is added fire, added cold, added lightning, added fire, added cold, added lightning. So it thinks they're zeros right now, which they should be. Okay, added fizz. Okay, it doesn't do anything. It's not adding fizz. So why isn't the script working? This should be in gear scripts, mod roles, added fizz. Oh! It's because I'm horrible. That's not how I did this. That's not how I set this up. This is, like, all wrong. So what does it need to be? Nothing. I don't even care about this argument. I don't care about argument 2. I don't care about argument 2. Yeah. Well, that explains it. But this should have broke because it doesn't get an argument to. Yeah, this I'm going to need to change later. I mean, it's wrong in the first place, but also I'm going to have to separate this out. Okay. Separate, increase damage. Added damage and increased damage are different offensive stats that function differently, so they may look a little bit similar, but they provide very different functions. Or rather, the math on them is very, very different, so it makes certain builds may want added damage more than increased damage. One's like a multiplier, and the other is like additive effects, so it just kind of depends on how your build is constructed. Also, the increased damage just takes the number and multiplies it, whereas added damage is based on the fizz damage that you're dealing, so it's very different interactions. So this is also going to be kind of broken, but none of these use an argument 2, and I don't think those ones should use an argument 2 either. So I'm curious why the code wasn't breaking, because it should have broke, because it could have been like, wait a minute, there is no argument 2. This isn't working. But apparently it was fine with it. Hey, it works now. Okay. Yeah, so it just wasn't getting argument 2, which is weird. So that means it shouldn't have done anything then. No added lightning? No, I need added lightning. Ideally, get it on some plus. Nope. Nope. Come on. Come on. Ah, there we go. Gloves with added lightning. Let me get, like, actually just a bad sword and a bad shield, because I don't technically want to do more damage, I just want to deal lightning damage. Because I want to give the most chance to stun something to see if the code even works. But I should... Yeah, I have a bit of added fizz, and I have added lightning. Except I shouldn't have added fizz. Okay, so the added fizz script is kind of broken, but that should be fixable. So stunning them will be a pretty low chance, because I'm dealing 1 out of 30, so I should have a 1 in 30 chance to stun them. So I'm just going to keep hitting things until it happens. Stunned. And it lasts that long. Beautiful. Okay, so stun chance works. Did I roll cold damage? I think I did. Yes. So let me swap into the cold damage. Yeah, all the added damage scripts are not removing like they're supposed to, so I'll have to fix that. But now I should also do a little bit of chilled, which means that they should move a bit slower now. Like 1 in 30 slower. They just don't move at all. Uh-oh. Yeah, okay. So I'll have to see what's up with that. Alright, so let's see, why do these not turn off then? Because I'm bad, that's why. So added fire should work properly. Added cold should work properly. Added lightning should. It's just the added fizz that should have been broken. Okay, and then... What was the other thing that I just said? Oh yeah, for some reason, when I try to slow them, they just stop moving. So we're adding that value equals the total cold divided by max HP. So if you do like 1 damage, it'd be 1 over 30. Ah, that's why. Classic 1 plus slow amount. So that explains that problem. The stun totally works. I like it. Yes, just the stun chance that scales. The duration's the same. Beautiful. The duration's 2 seconds. That might be a little long, but it's good. Yeah, so let's try this again. This time I'm technically just checking for slows, but I'm also checking to make sure that the scripts turn off and turn on correctly. Cool. That gives me cold damage. This gives me fire. So if I look, I should have, yep, some fire and something cold. Goes back to 0. Perfect. That one works just fine. That one works just fine. Okay, so it should have been just the fizz, and I saw where that was screwed up, and I fixed it. So we're good. So now we're going to see if it slows properly. So it should be a little bit slower. It'll be hard to tell. But because this is cold damage based, I can roll as the scribe, which deals cold damage. And if I fully upgrade this, whatever. So this, however much damage this ends up dealing, which apparently ends up being a lot, it should slow them by a lot. And it breaks. Beautiful. Why does it break? Oh, because I didn't update for the other hitboxes like I said I needed to do. So down here, all the stuff that I added in here, I need to add to all of these. So the cool thing too, I'm leaving my code very, very open and how these work as being very, very open. However, in theory, I could very easily lock certain skills to only dealing certain kinds of damage. So I can make it so that, like, Fireball can only deal fire damage, and that's it. So any other mods, anything else don't apply to it. It's very easy for me to take my code and do that with it. I don't want to do it that way, at least for now. But that is something where, like, that's something that's kind of bothered me in games like Path of Exile, which they've tried to address as time has gone on. Of like, oh, I'm playing a Fireball build, but I'm converting all of my damage to cold damage and freezing things. It's like, you're using Fireball. Like, it should do fire damage. Like, what are you doing? The optimal, a cold damage skill shouldn't be Fireball. So I may at some point decide to shift things in that direction. So right now it should be that half of this damage is cold, and I thought that I made it so that way Enchant Weapon converts it so it's 100% cold, but we'll see. It moves faster? Do I do the opposite of slow him down? It looks like I speed him up. Whoops! Is it 1 minus the slow amount? I think it's 1 minus the slow amount. Because if the slow amount is, say, 10%, 1 minus 0.10, would be 0.9, so it would in fact slow them down by 10%. So, yep. But the fact that it was a noticeable speed change means that it looks like it's working to me. So that's awesome. And then again, if a skill has the slows mod, it just gets an extra 20% added to the slow amount on every hit. Which is probably a lot, but yeah, I should probably make this 10%. So basically what this means is the advantage of having the slows mod is even if you're not doing cold damage, it will slow them by 10%, so within 10 hits... Well, I guess not necessarily, because they're slowed based on their current move speed. So 10 hits isn't 100% move speed reduction. No. It's 90, 81, 72.5 or whatever, and so on and so forth. Or 72.9 or whatever. So they will get slowed by a fair amount, but after 10 hits, I think they'll be at around like 50% or something. Okay. Well, the slow works and the stun works, so awesome. And the ignite works. It's just, this is the secondary effect, not the primary. And I just haven't come up with a design space for that. I technically want a secondary effect for the lightning damage. I don't have any abilities that would use it right now into the game, but I can theoretically set up the foundational code for that. So let's kind of do that. Which this is chaining lightning damage. Oh Jesus, this is actually kind of hard. Maybe I don't want to figure this out right now. Because what I would have to do is... I would have to... I would have to, like, add all of the enemy objects within a certain range into a list. Jesus, okay. So, here's why I'm, like, not sure how to do this. So, I could have it check for each chain that it checks if there is an enemy within a certain range of the enemy hit. And then if so, it then hits that. And then it can do the same thing on that enemy, where it just runs the same code again. That gets crazy complicated, though, with passing stuff around, and that's a lot of checks. So I'm wondering if there's a way where, like, I could throw them all into a list, and then just have it check the list and sort of just hit them all that way. But it should be... the range of the chained lightning strike should be based on the enemy that was hit last, which means how do I generate the initial list? Because if it chains to be, 3 times as far away as the initial hit, there's different things within range there. So I can't generate the list at the beginning. I don't think I can do a list at all. And the problem with not doing it with some kind of list thing is now it will always go based on how the code works to, like, the same one that's within range if nothing moves. So I'd want it to, on each hit, I would have to look at all of the enemies that are within range of the target that was hit. And then randomly pick one of those. And then it will hit that and run the same code again. That's kinda nuts. That's surprisingly complicated. So I think what I need to do is I need to script this out. I'll have this go var number of chains. And this argument should be number of chains. And then I would need to write a script, and basically, as long as number of chains is greater than 1, it will look for the nearest enemy, do the thing, de-increment it by 1, and then run itself again until it hits 0. And the reason why I want it to run itself again is because the script will run on the target that was hit, so it'll actually move around. As opposed to if I iterate in like a loop, well, the enemy that was hit is going to change, so it would have to like track that, and it's probably just easier just to run the script again. SCR chaining lightning damage. Is that what I called it? Chaining lightning damage. I forgot the T. Cool, okay. So what this should do, so initially this is going to run on the target that is hit. So this will be running on the target. And other refers to the hitbox. So I can have this take okay, so first it needs to find a target. So it needs to look for oh shit, I technically need to have this math. Although, this math, these variables are still on the enemy object, so I don't need to recalculate these. Except I do. God damn it. Okay. So I need to var these out. And then, I don't want this to be sight range. Let's just make this 150. Because why not? I should var these out as well. So here, I don't want this to look at obj_char. I want this to look at parent enemy. So here's where it gets screwy, because if I check for parent enemy, I don't think it'll check for every single one. It'll check for one of them, and I hope it's smart enough not to check for itself. But I don't think it is. So what I actually need to do is I need to create a list of all enemies on the screen, and that's what's absurd. I need all enemies that exist within one list. Then it needs to remove itself. Then it needs to run then it needs to shuffle the list, pop the first value off it, use the first. Yo, Sirius, what's up? Use the first value that it pops off as the target, Then it can check that if it's in range. And if it's not, it goes to the next, so on and so forth. And that's a ridiculous amount of calculations to do in a single frame. So I hate that. Or I could have it create a list of all the possible enemies on the screen, remove itself, and then also run a check to see which ones are in range, remove all the ones that aren't, which is also an insane amount of calculations to do in a single frame, and then shuffle that list, pop the first value, and just do the same thing on that, and just loop until it gets through the iterations. Which, again, that's also an insane amount of calculations. Huh. I know there's a way to do this, because games have effects like this, and they can apparently make it optimal enough that it's not a performance issue. But this seems like a mess. I could super cop out and make it that what lightning damage does is, rather than chaining as an effect, it like statics out in a circle, so it kind of novas. And I can just make it visually look like it's a lightning thing. But I absolutely hate that. I want to make this work. Maybe it's not that much overhead as I think it is. So I have a room data object that keeps track of the number of enemies, but I don't think it keeps track of their IDs. But it keeps track of the number. So I can reference the room data to know the number of iterations I need to do. But again, I don't have their IDs. Why do I have all of these open? That's really annoying. Okay, let me do what I did before and reset my workspace. Because right now, this is the only thing that I care about, is this script. What's a good way for me to do this? I'm going to quickly Google this, because I can't be the first person to run into this. And perhaps there's some way to think about it that I'm not thinking of. That would make this way, way easier. GML chain lightning effect. I'm going to call it chain lightning, because that's probably what people would call it. Yes, jumping to the nearest enemies. Perfect. Thank God I have enough game vocabulary to know what people will be looking for. Shoot at the nearest enemy and then jump to other enemies that are the closest to that enemy. That's true. It doesn't have to be a random enemy. It can be the closest one. So that makes it a little bit simpler, but not really. Jump from enemy to enemy, always choosing the closest enemy to it. Don't know how to look for an enemy closest to the bullet, while excluding the nearest enemy, the one which the bullet's currently on top of. Yeah, that's exactly the problem that I'm having. Well, not exactly, but the instance nearest defines the closest enemy to the bullet. So apparently it's a built-in function that can do that. I would add all enemies within range to DS list, then loop through the list to see which enemy is the closest. After jumping to an enemy, it would remove that enemy from the list to make sure the lightning always jumps to a new enemy. I don't necessarily care about that. This could get complicated without some good ground rules. That's what I'm hitting. First, let's define a few things. What's the maximum range you can jump? How many jumps are possible? Can the lightning only jump to targets it's never hit before, or can it return to a previous target? Yeah. So you ask that question, but then you don't say what to do once you've defined all that. Okay, what does this guy say? So if you don't want to jump back and forth between two targets incessantly, let's give every enemy a simple variable, call it chained. Now, every enemy needs a parent object, in case you're not doing that already. Yes, I have one. You'll need a maximum range variable. We'll call it max range, fair enough. I'm gonna open my door down again, it's getting toasty in here. I like my new green screen. Obviously, don't have it set it up fully properly, but it makes this room so much hotter. My previous background could breathe. You can bounce between targets. You figured a lot more. Just this stuff. So, can you show me the actual? Yeah, okay. So it's going to check if the enemy has been chained. If not, it looks at the point distance, and then if that distance is less than the max range, and the temp distance is less than other temp distances, so that would mean that it's the closest, then you set the target equal to that one's ID. If the temp target is equal to nobody, then it does nothing. If there is, then it sets... Okay, that would work, I guess. Yeah, chain... Huh. Okay. I guess this... So, what this seems to be implying is if I go with parent enemy, it will check all instances of parent enemy, is what this code will do. And, no, that should be fine. And what we're looking for is if they have the chain variable, which I don't want to do it that way. Because you could have multiplayer, multiple instances of this ability going off or whatever. I don't want it to just reference the same global or the same local variable on the actual enemy object. I just want it to find an instance of the enemy that isn't itself. So then I would also check, so with parent enemy, and can't it just do not self? That should work. Watch it like not work and be horrible. So what do I want to do with each of these? What I want it to do is so with every instance that is not itself, I want it to then figure out what the temp distance is. Yeah, so let's go. I think I would have to do var temp distance. Temp distance is equal to, point distance. And it would be, x and y, so the distance from the current origin to the other thing's origin. That makes sense. Then, if the temp distance is greater than other dot max range. Okay, so I need a range variable, which is totally fine. Range equal to 150. And this can also be a temporary variable. And now I can change these to range just to make this simple. Wow. Slightly more readable and easier for me to modify. So if the temp distance is less than range, and the temp distance is less than other dot temp distance. I'm not quite following why this would work, because other dot temp distance isn't set. Oh, it should be. I got you. So at the top here, we actually define And he just said define it as some big number. I can define it as just something that's bigger than the range, and that's fine. That would also work. But then I need to have this reference self and other. So this should be self. No? Why does this not look like it's going to work? We're going through every enemy, checking the distance, and picking out the closest. Yes. Why does this not set it to the correct thing? This should turn yellow because it should be referring to this one. Because this is happening on this object. This is happening on the parent, or on the starting object, which would be the other from here. So this should work. Why does this not work? Is it just the precompiler? Not understanding what I'm doing, but this should work? Because I think this should work. Okay, we'll see if this pans out. So, what this is checking is if the temporary distance is less than the range, right? So it has to be within range, and that temp distance is less than the current temp distance variable. Right, okay. Then what happens is we redefine other dot temp distance as temp distance. So we're just defining it as the shortest one now, and then setting other dot temp target, which I need to define, equal to the ID. And this would be var temp target equals no one. So then we get ID. So this will go through every instance of parent enemy. So it'll find the closest enemy that isn't itself, and it'll save that ID. Then I would want if temp target does not equal no one, then I would want it to do this stuff down here. Which actually, I don't need any of this fancy shit anymore. So all this does is now, what does it do on the target? It takes their current HP, it subtracts the total lightning damage. Let's take, what is this? Temp target dot current HP. It will subtract the total lightning damage, which again, it should have, because it should pass into this from the previous value. Oh, isn't this actually argument 1? I think I'm wrong. I think this is argument wrong. Where's my damage script? Here it is. Oh, and I pass in number of chains, and yeah, let's pass in as well total lightning. So these two values get passed in, and then so this is minus equals argument 2. Oh, that's a bad way to do it. Oh my god. This is oh god, this is really, really, really complicated. Because it'll take how much damage it dealt to the first thing and its defenses, and then just do that to everything that changed, which is not what I want it to do. I want it to recalculate this. And the reason for this is because the other targets will have different resistance values and whatnot. So I'm going to have to take this line and do this line all again in this code, but make sure that it does it correctly and that the values are correct. Okay. So what this needs to do... So I shouldn't be taking the other dot lightning damage? No, I can, because this is still on the same object. So this is all completely fine, except that the lightning resistance should be the temp target. Dot lightning resistance. And then the pierce mod and crit damage are temporary values that aren't being passed in. And they need to be. So I guess I need 2 more arguments and to pass these in. The reason why I'm trying to do this on a script rather than just putting it on here is that way at the end I can have it de-increment the number of chains and then run itself again and pass the same values into itself. Because if we look at this right, okay, the pierce mod, that's actually, pierce mod's wrong. Technically, this means that this hasn't been working. Because this should be the player data pierce mod. So that's important. And then crit damage needs to be passed in. So let's have that be the 3rd argument. So it passes in crit damage. And then what we do here is we make var crit damage equal to argument. Oh, I guess this would be argument 2, because this would actually be argument 1, because argument 0 is a thing. And let's just go var num of chains equals argument 1. So that will be relevant. Argument 0. Argument 0, argument 1, argument 2, beautiful. So this is crit damage, and then this should be the player data pierce mod. This can't be other. I need to do this calculation before the resistances, and then move that value in. Sorry, this calculation. Okay. Actually, that's not too insane. What I would do base lightning equals this calculation, so this is the entire calculation before the defenses are factored in. And then I can multiply this actually by crit damage. Because it doesn't matter when that gets multiplied. And then, rather than passing in crit damage, I pass in, or total lightning, I just pass in base lightning. So it's just number of chains and base lightning that gets passed in. So then, I don't need crit damage anymore. And all I need to do is take this, which is argument 1. And it'd be argument 1 times all of that. So if it's not equal to nobody, then it does all that. Then I want to take number of chains, and I want to subtract 1 from it. And then if number of chains after subtracting 1 from it is greater than 0, what you do is you do literally the same thing again, and I can just literally pass the value straight in. No, I pass number of chains in, and then I pass argument 1 in. And so, now this technically references itself, but it'll iterate until number of chains hits 0. And then we just put in a check if temp target is equal to no one. Then we just set number of chains equal to 0. Which this shouldn't matter, because it shouldn't even get to here. Like, if it's nobody, it should just hit the bottom of the script and stop. But just in case. Yo, retardus. How are things going? Pretty good. I'm figuring out chain lightning, which is, like, super, super rough. But I think I got this figured out. I think this will work. The only problems I'm having is these others might not work right. Like, this is a little weird. I think this is how I have to do it. I have to do self. And then do this. And then do self here. Oh, it hates that. So in my experience, if it's yellow, it means that it's tracking. Even if it's within a with statement, it will still point to this same variable. Is how GML works. That's my understanding. So this should work. because this sets a new variable of temp distance 2. And this needs to be temp distance 2. So then if this temporary distance is less than the range and is less than the current temp distance that's saved on the master object, or the initial target, then it overwrites the initial temporary distance and writes the target ID. So it'll do this on every instance of parent enemy that exists, and so it'll find the closest ID. Then it'll go to here and go, hey, if the target's been found, it takes damage, sets number of chains -1. If number of chains is greater than 0, then run the script again on the new target. Otherwise, basically, stop. And expected 3 and got 2? No, you should only have 2 arguments. Do I call something here argument 2 when I should have called it argument 1? No. There's only 2 arguments in this script. There's only 2 arguments in this script. Let me pre-compile it. Okay, cool. I don't have a visual component yet. So now this will run every time, regardless of if there's lightning damage. I do want it to be a % chance. Here's what I'm going to do. Rather than doing it like a % chance, because I want to test if this even works in the first place, I'm just going to have a check for if total lightning is greater than 0. So if you do lightning damage, then it'll just always do this. I think I'm not going to have it be that. Or maybe I am, I don't know. But this will be like a % chance or a chains toggle. It'll probably be a chains toggle, kind of like Ignite, where ignites happen if there's an ignite. I can do chains happens if there's a chains. But now this will only happen if I do lightning damage, and if I do any amount of lightning damage at all to the target, it should run this. So I'm going to do this way for now so that I can test it out. There isn't a visual for it, but you'll see the other thing's health go down if it works, and if it doesn't work, it'll throw out an error code and just break. So I can kind of test it. Sure, let's do the witch. So let's roll something that deals lightning damage and see if all of this work actually, added up to something. I should probably just roll a sword that has lightning damage and keep it simple. No. There we go. Added lightning damage. So it'll be a very small amount of damage, but it should work. Maybe they weren't in range? It's hard to tell. Okay, yeah, it looks like it's not actually triggering. Okay, so why isn't it triggering? So what should be happening is if total lightning is greater than 0, it should just do this. I guess I can theoretically remove this check for now as well. Because it's really not important initially. SCR chain lightning. And it passes in the number of chains in the base lightning damage. It takes these values, and sets the number of chains, and it just uses a value here for if it takes damage, all this stuff. It's in a range of 150. The temp distance initially is 160 because it shouldn't matter, because as long as the new temp distance is smaller than the old, it should work. Okay. I may have messed up this variable logic here as well, so I'll check it again, and if it doesn't work this time either, I will think about that more carefully. Beautiful, I got some added lightning damage. And added fizz, and added fire. So I deal 30% more damage. So that one hit should do 13 damage. If the chains works, other things should take, like, a little bit of damage. It looks like they're not. Am I doing 13 damage a hit? It looks like I'm not doing 13 damage a hit. I'm doing 12? I should be doing 13. I should be doing 13. Either way, the chained lightning effect isn't doing anything. But okay. So not sure why I was doing 12 damage when I should have been doing 13. I know the lightning mod works because I tested out the stun mechanic and that works. So this chains isn't working at all. And I know it's not failing to try to activate because it can't. It can't fail. It has to try to get this far. And all of these values it's finding just fine, because otherwise it would throw out an error code. So it gets into this script, and at some point it's just one of these checks that fails. And I'm guessing it's my logic here. So I think it should have to look something like this. The problem is the precompiler doesn't think of these as temporary variables. And that's kind of bad. I could make these not temporary variables, and it technically should work. I'm going to see if it knows what the heck I'm talking about if I do this. I just don't want to keep those variables as variables. I want them to go away at the end of the script, which is why I'm doing it this way. Beautiful. Added lightning. Easy. Yeah, this breaks because it doesn't know what it is because it's now trying to make these as non-temporary variables. Okay, so let's reference these as non-temporary variables. Just see if I can get the code to work. And then I'll need to put something where when it stops, it deletes the variables or zeroes them out or something. I don't know. If these variables are on the hitbox, it's actually fine. And I think they are on the hitbox. So maybe I don't need to be fussed about it. Which is probably why the original code that I was referencing didn't worry about it. That means it'll deal more damage, but that's fine. As long as I deal some amount of lightning. Oh, beautiful. Added lightning. So I should deal 11 damage, and I should chain some amount of damage. Ooh! No, I'm just hitting him. Or am I? Yeah, I'm just hitting him. So why the hell isn't this working? Other.range, other.temp distance, other.temp target. This is temp distance 2. And it does follow that, and it does know it because it's all happening on the parent anything. Okay. Let me try to remove this not self check. I doubt that's the problem. I mean, this shouldn't matter, but put in some semicolons. I guess I should roll these. Lightning damage, cool. This will do some weird amount of damage. Because I haven't fixed my increased damage mod. Which again is different from added damage. Yeah, so we do a weird amount of damage. And I think the really weird fraction is because I think the chain lightning effect's working. It's just hitting itself. I can confirm this by rolling a sword with an actual predictable amount of damage. Added lightning and pierce enemy defenses, no. I want a sword that's like just added lightning, basically. Did any of these roll added damage by chance? Or added lightning? Ah, that rolled added lightning. Do I just have a blank sword somewhere? No. Let's roll a blank sword. Okay. So this should deal this should deal 11 damage because I just have added lightning damage and that's it. So it should deal a full 11 damage because it's getting 10% added lightning. If it deals a weird decimal, that means it's hitting itself with something. It's dealing like 13 damage now for some reason. Why? What? I guess it could be chaining to itself. So let's see, it would take the value. Actually, I think it is working and it's just hitting itself. Because if you think about it, it would take the 1 lightning damage, because right now it's only dealing 1 lightning damage. It's dealing 10 fizz and 1 lightning. So it's taking that 1 lightning damage, looking for a target. I'm not discluding itself, so it can hit it again, and it can hit it 2 more times, which should add up to 13 damage total, which I believe is how much I'm doing, right? Yeah. So I think it is working. It's just targeting itself. So how come if I do this, it doesn't work? I could do it the way that they did it. And do this. Do I have to reference it, or is it already referenced? Ah, okay. If chained is equal to 0. So Oh. And then what I want to do is when it does the thing on the target, I want it to unchain itself. And I don't even have to set the target's chained equal to 1, because it defines it at the top of the script. Okay. So I should deal 12 damage. 1 of that damage should get chained on if the effect works. It just breaks horribly. Why? Because zombie.chained is not set before reading it. That's the problem. So this is why I really don't want to have this be a variable. I really don't want to do it this way. I just want this to be this. I would much rather do it that way. But that seemed like it wasn't working. The reason for this is if I have that chain variable, it means if you have multiple chaining lightning effects, they're never going to hit the same target. So I really, really, really don't want to do it that way. Cool, it has lightning damage. It's going to do a weird amount of damage because it has pierce and a bunch of other crap. Oh, okay. So it's doing a weird amount of damage, which is what I would expect, but it's not chaining. For some reason, the not self doesn't work. Oh! Because I'm an idiot, I think. I think I need to define temp target, current target equal to self. So that should save the ID. Or would I make this not other? No, that's not going to work. I need it to be not current target. I don't think this is going to work either. So I believe the problem with doing it as not self is it's on the parent enemy object, which means it's not self is never going to be true. Because it's looking at itself, whatever object it's looking at. But I can't do other, because if this thing is, again, if it rolls itself, it's always not going to be other. But I can't do current target, because this variable doesn't point to here. So I have to do, like, other.current target? What's up? Oh. So I have to do something like other.current target, which I think is not going to work. And the reason why I think this isn't going to work is maybe this would work. Maybe I can do the check like this. So if it rolls itself, it'll have the two things that it's looking at them both being the same object, and this will actually fail, which is what I want it to do, and it'll go, okay. And it'll just roll through the other ones. If it gets a different object, it will look at the ID. Okay. If ID is not equal to other.self, or other.current target, which would be this self, and this is the ID specifically. I think I figured it out. I think this will work. And everything else can remain the same, and then I don't have to have that chained variable, which is important, because then multiple lightning abilities can trigger and hit the same thing. I'm like 40% confident in this. Good. I got lightning damage. And again, because I got pierces, it's going to do a weird amount of damage. I'm just checking if it chains to another target, and it'll be like 1 or 1.1 that chains. It's not. Although I'm kind of hitting them, which is weird. I'm hitting them for like the full amount. This doesn't look right. Hey! It chained! Okay! I think I figured it out. Look at that. Ha! Beautiful! Oh my god! I can't believe that worked. Okay, so if I want to make it even more emphasized, even clearer, first off, I can put this check back in now that I know that this works. I can make sure that this check fails or not. And I'm going to make the chains by default like 5, just to make it really clear and obvious what's going on. Will it try to do this all on one frame? It might. What I'm going to have to do, and I can kind of wait till I get some visuals, is I'll have to put in, if it, I'll have to put in a slight delay, so that A, it looks better and it looks like it's chaining, and then B, it can take those calculations that I'm worried if you get like chains 20 is going to lag the game out. If I have it wait a little bit between each one, it totally fixes the performance problem. I didn't get added lightning, because of course I didn't. I know I can put in debug code to force the roll and all that. I'm really, really lazy right now. That also wasn't lightning damage. Sweet, added lightning. Don't even have to roll this one. I can just get out of this and check. So now it should hit up to 5 targets, and it should be able to go back and hit a target it's hit before. So, for example, yep, it does appear to be working right. So it's kind of hard to tell because it all happens on one frame, so their life totals just change. But the fact that some take some amount of damage from the chains, and others appear to take more, is a good sign. Although maybe it's not quite working right. Okay, I will have to put in a visual component, which I can do on the actual script, where when it takes the damage, okay, let me do the var chained damage minus equals chained damage. This is like a really crappy way for me to do this. X minus 10, Y minus 45. And the text itself needs to be string chain damage. This will only display for 1 frame, so it'll flash. How do I make it last longer than that? What's wrong? Why doesn't it like any of this? Oh. What's a better way for me to make this clear? I just wanted this to be like a simple debug check code. If I did use that variable that I didn't want to use of the chained variable, then this could check it, but... I think technically I could cut this and cut this, because then it would be, do the two objects have a matching ID? And that would be the only time that it would be a problem. I had to write it this way to logic through it, but I think that should work. Yeah. Yeah. I can't think of a very good way to do this. Loud background noise. So I'm gonna just deal with the fact that this will just flash for a frame, and I'll just look very, very closely at what's going on. I really can't do much without, like, real visuals, and I don't really have the time tonight to put real visuals in. In fact, I should end the stream pretty soon here. So I just want to confirm the current state of how this is working. Oh, I didn't roll lightning damage. Cool. Lightning damage and a whole bunch of other mods, so it'll be kind of weird, but... In theory, I could make a really debugged sweep attack that's exactly the same, except it deals its damage as lightning instead. So it should chain like 100% of its damage if it chains. See, so that is chaining, which is good. But it's only chaining to one target, and it's not flashing the text, which is kind of weird. Let's make the range way bigger, because that might be part of the problem. Added lightning, cool. It should just be a very small amount of damage that's being chained. It looks like it's only chaining to one target. Why? Is it because I'm not putting a return here, which I should? And let me check the reference code that I was originally pulling from. Does it have, like, a nested if statement or something that helps account for a potential problem? No, that's fine. So somebody said that there was a pretty smart way to do the checks with instance deactivate for each failed check or whatever, which is pretty interesting, but I'm not going to do that. Yeah, I'm thinking it's just It was the fact that I didn't have the returns in place. Cool. Okay, it does look like it's passing too much damage over it. Like, it shouldn't be doing 5 damage to this. That's kind of insane. But it's also not chaining to more than one target. Why not? It kind of works. Let's see. What's wrong here? So it has the range and the distance, and these just get defined at the top of the script. So when it goes to here and it runs it on the new target. Oh, is it not running? It's not running this on the new target. Well, there we go. With ID or with temp target. Run this script. Well, not sure if it's gonna import these incorrectly, but I'll try. So that is obviously the first problem. It wasn't actually running the script on the new target, which is what it should do. Okay, let me put in debug code to have the sword spawn in with added lightning, because I'm getting sick of this. Let's see, this would be this one here. Oh. Mod 1 equals oh, sorry. I need to go to the library. 20. And same thing, but this is roll 1 equals 1. Now the wood should spawn in with a added lightning damage sword. Yeah. And it didn't apply the mod because I have to equip it. Yeah, so the problem here is so I'm just going to super cheat this. Rather than figure out how to get it to run the right script and all that, I'm just going to spawn it into my inventory, and then I can just equip it, and it's still way faster and whatever. Yeah, beautiful. The added lightning damage. Okay, it looks like it's working right now. It's training to multiple targets. It's not training to 5, which is what it should be doing. And the range is so big, it should be hitting stuff that's really far away, and it's not. So it's a little bit troublesome. It looks like it's bouncing back and forth, though, because it's always hitting the nearest target. Right. That makes sense. Hey.
Pineapple fried rice?
Yeah, what about it?
You want some?
Hell yeah.
Okay, we're ordering for you.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Okay, yeah, so what's happening is it's chaining back and forth. So that's why it looks like it's only hitting 2 or 3 targets, which means it might have been working right before. Yeah, I don't have stamina because I'm bad. Kill me. Kill me. Kill me. So what's happening, if you look closely enough, you can actually see it jump. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So if there's two targets near each other, it'll just bounce back and forth. If you look, when there's three targets, if I'm hitting one target and there's two that are farther away, it'll change to the second and the third and back and forth. So if I put in the visual delay, that will be more clear. In theory, I should add in a bit of randomness to it. So, okay, see how this guy's super, super far? It's going to hit this guy and two of those guys, which it did. So it works. It's just, it's not always going to hit 5 things because it's going to chain around in a weird way. Because it always hits the nearest target. So in theory, I should put in a little bit of randomness to it. What it should do, in theory, is not necessarily pick the closest target. And that's much different code and kind of harder to do. And the reason for that is it'll make it slightly better at sort of jumping around seemingly randomly. I could put in that variable that I didn't want to. For if something's been hit with the chained effect, and then it'll force it to hit something different. But I don't like that for the same reasons that I still don't like it. So, can I think of a quick way to do this? If not, I should probably wrap this up and wrap up the stream. Okay, this range shouldn't be 500, because that's insane. Let's make it 200. Oh. Well, that's part of the problem. But yeah, 210. So it's this check here. This makes sure that it always picks the closest target. How to make it not necessarily pick the closest target. So it needs to make sure that it's within range. True. So instead of the other check, I'll just take... let's create a list, I guess, of targets equals ds list create. And then I will have this do ds list add. And what it'll add is it'll add in the ID of the object it's sorry, I need the ID of the list, which would be other.targets. And the value it's going to add in is this thing's ID. And then I don't need to care about the rest of this. Which kind of means I don't need this either. So then it should do this for every enemy and then stop. So then, afterwards, I want this to take temp target and make this equal to, ds, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, list shuffle of the targets list. So it should shuffle this, and then this just equals ds list. What is it? Find value is based on the position. Yes. The ID should be the targets list, and the position should be position 0. So it'll randomly pick one of the targets within range, and then do this. I believe this will work without me changing anything, in that I believe if the list is empty, it won't work, and it should stay no one, so this should work. So if there's nothing in range, it just won't chain. So now this should make it look a lot more randomized. And I can do this way now. Now the only problem is I don't delete these variables. Is there any way that I can make it do that? variable. Because this is the whole reason I wanted to use these as temporary variables, is because I don't want them to linger after the script runs. But apparently, if I set them as temporary variables, I can't point to them. GML deleting variables. How to delete a variable. I'm actually not seeing a clear answer for this. I can solve this another time, but this is potentially something that could be problematic. Vars on enemy objects for chain lightning need to delete. Okay. But let's go ahead and test this again to see if it does this properly now, where it should be a bit more random. It should be anything that's within the range. So not necessarily the closest. Yep, cool. So you see how it kind of randomly ticks down on the various enemies? Apparently those guys count as being in range somehow, which is kind of amazing. I guess that it would be a range of 200. 200 is pretty far. Okay. So good. This is exactly what I wanted to check here. Line 25. Why does this break? I thought if it had one target, the code would break, or no legal targets, the code would break, but not on this line. So the sweep gets to the damage script, which it should. And then the damage script, chain lightning damage. Yeah, it gets to the chain lightning script. And it passes in those values. And in the chain lightning script, it gets all the way down to the chained damage. So it found a legal target to get to here. And then illegal, undefined, and null. Okay, let's go ahead and look in here. So temp target should exist. Yeah, so it shouldn't do this if there's no target. Oh, maybe it is. Okay. Maybe what it's doing is it's pulling, there's no value on this. So it's filling it in with empty rather than with no one or whatever. And so this check is passing, but when it gets to here now, the temp target isn't actually an object, or isn't actually an object that exists. So it's failing there. So it is the problem that I thought, it's just manifesting in a slightly different way. So what that means is I need to have a check here, which is if DS list isn't there empty? Yeah, empty targets. And I would just want this to be whoop. Come on. If this is not empty, then set this, otherwise do nothing, because it's defined as no one. So yeah, the only problem now is you'll end up with an empty list and these variables set on the enemy objects, which is not something that I want. because that's useless variables that aren't needed after this kind of check. Oh, I have to do it as the witch for the lightning sword. So it's a little bit weird. And there's, yeah, so I'll need to find a good way to clear those out or maybe handle them differently, but it looks like it's working, and stuff can get stunned, which is awesome. The chain lightning I don't think can cause the stunned effect, I think. So that's something that I may need to change or want to change. Which is that chain lightning can't stun. Which, that could be fine. It just, it doesn't right now. So let me get down to one target, because I wasn't paying attention if I was ever in that scenario. Let me just, like, trigger only one and get it far away. So this way it has no legal target to chain. It doesn't break. Cool. So yeah, there's no visual effect for it, and it happens all on the same frame, which isn't quite how I want it to work. But the functionality's there. Lightning damage, chains. And it chains semi-randomly with the things that are in range. So that's good. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that I can rewrite this to address all of those problems, or a lot of different ways that I can move this around to address all of those problems. I just have to sort of figure out what will work best and make some decisions there. But I'm good with this. So let me go to my sheet, and chills works, stuns works. I don't have one for fire. So let's go ahead, let's copy this, put it here. Then what? Yeah. Delete that. So I still need to come up with the fire always ailment. I don't have freeze chance. I have chains for lightning. I guess I'll just put it in there. These don't really need to be separated now. This is more or less how it currently works. Just need to double check. So the ignite for fire is technically finished. I think I already made note of it up there. But I don't have freezes for cold, and I don't have an always ailment for fire. Alright. So I'm going to wrap up and end the stream. I went a little bit over, but it's because I was wrapping up the system, so I feel good about that. So what we did today, which is awesome, is we improved our line of sight code for enemy targeting. So now they can't see through objects, and if you get too far away, they will unsee you and stop moving. Yeah, I separated out the added damage scripts. I still need to separate out the increased damage scripts, which I don't think I wrote down here, but I have it down on this list because it fits better on this list. So that's fine. And I added in and refined my ailment system, so now cold damage chills, lightning damage stuns, and or chains. Ignites are already in the game. I guess I will put them in here. Ignites on fire damage. So that whole system now works. And the effects scale appropriately based on what they should scale on. Yeah, so I feel good about that. So next time, tomorrow's Wednesday, which is officially my day off on the week, so I'll be coming back on Thursday to work on stuff. I'll probably do some random polishy bits in the meantime, but nothing on stream, nothing super huge. So when we get back, it'll basically just be adding in content. Probably I'll focus on adding in a lot more skills. Now that I have different damage types and ailments and stuff, I have the space to create a lot more skills, so I'll probably create the basic frost spells, and some of the basic lightning attacks and stuff like that, and really try to round out the skills in the game, expand this list a lot farther. I doubt I'll get all 48 done, because I want about 48 total for this first part, and I doubt I'll get them all done, but I think I'll get at least quite a few added in on Thursday. Probably, I'd say about 8 more, I think makes sense. Which would be about like 2 more full kits. And I need to start trucking away at that. And that, I'm sure, will come up with problems and all that stuff. So that's all I'm probably going to try to work on Thursday, because I think if I try to bite off more than that, it just won't get done. Because I have a feeling this will take more time than I can anticipate. But we're getting very close to some kind of presentable demo build. We're getting very close. So yeah. So that's what we'll be doing Thursday. Alright, shoutouts times. So if you look down below, there's a link to my Patreon. The point of my Patreon is to raise funds for the skills for the parts of the games that I do not have the skill set to work on myself. So this would be stuff like art, music design, sound design. So that's the whole point of that first tier in the Patreon, is to raise funds so I can either expand the team and hire somebody to do that, or commission out the work and get that done. If you want to support me directly, and not necessarily this project, you can do so through subscribing on the stream. That will support my streaming content, which isn't necessarily game dev stuff. Sometimes it's other things and all that, and that supports me directly, whereas the Patreon is for the development of the game, the team. Otherwise, I should have a Twitter link down below as well, under the weekly schedule section. I always tweet out before I go live. I try to tweet out about 30 minutes before. I'm not always great about that. And my streaming schedule is also there. And if you notice, I stream weekdays, except Wednesday is a day off. So that's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. PDT. And weekends, I don't officially stream on weekends, but I tend to do casual streams with friends or whatever on weekends. So that's a great reason to follow my Twitter, because that's where you will see me post that stuff. And for the most part, the rest of the week should be game dev stuff, and I assume it will be all of next week as well, at least. Because there's a lot of some sort of grunty work stuff that I need to get done here. I think that's all that's needed for shoutouts. So with that, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And let me go ahead and find somebody to raid. Cool. Thanks for the follow, man. Okay. Let's see. Looking for something kind of similar, maybe? Maybe not? "2D pixel RPG. Sure, let's raid this person. So, /raid. Oh, beautiful.